Hi guys, it's Down Under Monkey and welcome to this week's feature lock. So this week's feature lock came as a request from Pocket Woman, and she's asked if I can go over the Multacc lockbox. Now this is going to be a multi-part series because I do plan on making a key, so you can use this little drawer. I'll show you how to decode this little wheel here. It's pretty easy once you get the back off, so you can use the shackle. And go over a bit about the cool features that are inside the back here. It's really nice. Pretty simplistic in its design, but also looking pretty complex at the same time. Alright, so the way it essentially works is you have your keys for whatever you want, or your treasure, hidden inside there. Close it up. Everybody who wants to use this lock has an individual programmer, is what they call it. And it's got 5 positions in the key programmer that all line up with these 5 dials internally through that slot. Now that's not actually a cylinder, that's actually molded as part of the casing here, and that does not turn. The way this key gets a slight turn on it is there's a notch in the corner, a 45-degree notch on this side and a 45-degree notch on the other side. So when you put it in, line up your individual code depending on what that may be with these arrows across the top, and you give it that quarter turn because of the notches inside the key. What it does is it pops this lock, but it also, inside the back here, there's a plastic roll of film, and it actually stamps the code from the key that was used into the plastic film and rolls it around one, so the next key that goes in, it does the same, and it keeps a binary record of every key that was ever used until the film rolls out, basically, which is pretty cool. So I thought, why not? Let's have a look inside of this and, you know, show you how to pull it apart safely and not destroy anything. Let's start with some comparison for another lock. So this is our Master Lotto lock. So this thing is the biggest lock that I own. Not the heaviest, but dimension-wise, it is the biggest. It's an absolute monster. And quite heavy if you're playing at home and you want to know if it's going to break your toes. I do like to show the weight of these locks. Give this a second to zero. 900 grams, so that's a toe breaker. Don't drop it if you've got one. Right, so keeping the camera down, well, I'll keep it actually up a bit and I'll show you a bit about the lock. So they might come with these rubber boots on them. This one doesn't have one. This one has a half a rubber boot. And what you'll find underneath all this stuff is there's 4 Phillips head screws. Okay, but underneath it, I'll show you with this one, are these pressed metal fittings. Okay, and you've got to get those out before you can get to the Phillips head screws. So easiest way to do that, if I put the camera down, I'll put the other one side by side. Take a small screwdriver. This is just a press fit, like a spring washer almost. So wedge that off, keep that somewhere safe with the rubber boot. You're going to want to keep that, and you can see underneath. Now each one of these has a dimple in it. Now I find if you get something, this is my purpose-built screwdriver slash punch. What you're going to do is you're going to put it in the center of the dimple, lay it down on something like some bubble wrap. Okay, you're going to hit the end of this screwdriver a couple of times with a hammer, and what it's going to do is it's going to pierce this metal. It's actually quite soft, but it's got to be sharp. So if you're using something like that, make it sharp. So it's going to pierce the metal. I've already done it on the top ones here to save a bit of time. See how that fits in that little slot now? Okay. Always put something underneath it though, you don't want to damage the face or punch the safe wheel through. Alright, so keep that under there. And then what you should be able to do, once you've pierced it, is take your little screwdriver that you pierced it with. Let's try the other one, that's not working. And see how I'm just wedging that out? It just comes straight out. And there's your screw underneath. Nice and pristine. You can drill these very slightly and then wedge them out, but you run the risk of stuffing up the head of the screw. So I would suggest punching the hole like I did and wedging it out. This one's just a bit tight. It may be a bit tight, so you may need to hit it again to actually get it out, but you've seen what I mean. Punch it in, wedge it out, do that to all four. Okay, I'm not going to do that one now because this one's already open, and I'm going to show you how to pull it apart. So obviously get your Phillips head screw. I like to keep a magnet on my bench to keep all the parts on, so once I take the screws out, I can just stick them to the magnet. So take out, first of all, take out that screw, take out your two bottom screws. These are much longer than the top one, so there's your size difference, so you can only put it back together one way. Take off the other one down the bottom left. Now what you're going to want to do is hold the lock together, because it's going to want to come apart. There's a spring inside this cabinet, and it just wants to make the lock body separate. So keeping it face down when you open it. Sorry, I just bumped the camera tripod. So undo your screw, take it out, and chuck it on your magnet. Now you can see already that it's trying to spring open. Alright, gently let it spring open and just pull the cover just straight up and off like that. Okay, and we'll go over the internals in a second, but there's the spring that was pushing everything out. Okay, and you've got another spring there as well. So there's really nothing to the back of it. Pretty simplistic. It's the insides that start to get cool. So once you do take the back off, generally the door will spring open. Don't freak out about that, it's not damaged. Okay, inside here you've got a lot of cool stuff. So here's this roll of film I was talking about, and if I bring that up a bit closer, you can actually see some of the dents that have been made by the previous keys that have been used. And here's your new roll of film down the bottom that rolls up every time and gets a new stamp on it for every key that's been used. Just here is your latch, which actually engages the shackle. Now we're going to get to that in a second. That's an important one that we're going to know about. As long as you're keeping your lock face down at this point, you're not going to have any problems. Okay, now the roll of film, be careful because there's a little spring just here. It's full of lots of springs. Be careful not to push that too many times down, because every time you press that spring down, it cycles the roll of film one slot. And if you keep pressing it and pressing it and pressing it, you're going to end up with no film left, and it's hard to rewind it, and I can almost guarantee they don't sell this film anymore. So if you want to take this out, it's very easy. Just grab the very sides of it. You can pretty well just grab it. It's loose in there once you take all the screws out. Lift it straight up, and that whole film roll is one section. We're just going to have a quick look at this so I can show you how it works. So if you look here, as I said, you've got, it's hard to see, but you've got all your stamped in details. So there's little notches. They're actually stamped in by little tiny fingers, little tiny dimples, I suppose, on these plastic fingers. And when you put in your key with your specific code, it might push in, say, 1 and 3 and then 5 and 9 or something, but it'll stamp in your individual code. The film roll will cycle once, and then there's a record of what key was used. Now that's not going to come apart, but I do suggest that you sit it face down so you're not activating the spring every time you put it down like that. That'll stay together, don't stress. Onto the guts. Now, when you pull this apart and flip it over, there's a little piece of metal here. Just so you know, if you dump your lock out like that, you've dumped out your actuator for the shackle, and you've dumped out this little piece of metal. Don't stress out. They are loose in there. I'm just going to turn on the front light. Got some aircraft flying over at the moment, so it's a bit noisy. Okay, so this little piece of metal just sits down in that slot there and that slot there, over the top of that little cylinder. You can see it's just a retainer, so when the lock is completely assembled, it stops any flop in this core. It stops it flopping this way, in and out. Okay, so don't worry about that bit. Just put it back in that corner, it just sits there. Right, the actuator for the shackle, it goes in short side down. So the long side goes to the back of the casing like this, short side goes to the front, and there's a little slot just down in there, a little hole for it to go in. Sorry, that just zoomed in on my knuckle. I'm going to leave this out for just 1 second. I'm going to show you this wheel. So the back of the wheel, it's like a normal safe wheel. If you give it a couple of turns in any direction, you'll see that notch that just showed up, and then I'll give it a couple of turns in the other direction until the other notch lines up, and then you give it another turn in the other direction until that notch lines up, and that allows this little bar to swing away and undo the shackle. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you now, and how to decode these wheels really easily. So we're going to put the, remember I said, short side to the front, long side to the rear of the lock. So short side down in there. I'm going to push the shackle down, and you'll see that that actually lines up perfectly with the notch in the shackle. That's the locked position. When that swings away, the unlocked position, and the shackle will undo. Okay. So very simplistic in the design, but it can be quite daunting. Right, so when the shackle is locked and the little bar is across, you can't move it back. Well, when the cover's on, you can't move it back. So the cover secures this sort of in this position, and you can't undo the shackle. You also need to push the shackle down to operate the safe wheel on the front, because it drags this little piece of metal away from the wheels. As you can see what I'm doing now, it just gives it a bit of space so you can operate it. Decoding the safe wheel. Take out your bar, put it somewhere you're going to remember. Now if you have a look down here, your first operation when you're using this should be a couple of clockwise turns. Okay, just like that. Resets everything. Then you're going to have a look. Let me get the small screwdriver. Have a look down here. Now when I turn it clockwise at the front, all the wheels move at once. Now if you keep rolling that around, you'll see there's a number. That number is 6. So that's my very first number that I'm going to put in the dial at the front, is the number 6. And that's in a clockwise motion. Go to number 6. So if I keep turning that around roughly until I see the notch, and it's going to end up sort of in that position, I flip it over, there's your 6, close enough. Then your next operation is anti-clockwise. Now as I turn this anti-clockwise, the top wheel that we just set stays still until you do a full rotation, then it gets to the second one. Okay, so that's the notch lined up, but that's not the number that we need. So if you keep turning, the wheels are actually numbered. There we go. Number 12. You can see that. Hopefully. Focus down in there. It's hard to see, but it does say number 12. So that's our next position in the number. Alright, so if we go back, line the notch up. Yeah, it's roughly, well, that's miles out actually. But anyway, it makes sense in a minute. That's 12. And then if you turn clockwise once again, okay, let me reset this. So there's the first notch, anti-clockwise, line up the second notch, turn it back clockwise again. There's our last number, which is number 10. So the first two numbers are printed the right way up, and the last number is printed upside down. I don't know why. So write your combination down somewhere. 6, 12, 10. And what you're going to do is when you flip it over, like I said, reset the dial, give it a couple of turns. So you go clockwise until you get to your number 6, which is our first number. Anti-clockwise 1 full revolution to the number that you are on. Go past it to the next number, which is 12. Alright, like that. Then anti-clockwise, clockwise to the third number, and when we flip this over, they're all lined up. Okay, then if I put this back in here the way it's meant to go, close the shackle, you'll see that it swings into the slots, thus allowing the shackle to open. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please leave a comment down below and I will try to make it make a bit more sense for you. Okay, so that's that bit. Now, the thumb wheels, that's interesting. So you can see as I move them, they've got different shapes and different slots in them. And that's what records the little binary section. Sorry, this has just had a bit of an attack, and I've just got to get it back to where it was. Anyway, what I'll do, I'll show you. I'll pull this out and show you. So if you slide this up, you can actually see, if I push from the front, the whole wheel assembly comes up. So push out your left side first, and grab the whole wheel assembly, and you've got a spring that was in the end. As I said, I'm going to go in more in depth in this in a later video, and that's the casing empty. Basically, put your spring somewhere you're going to remember it. It is metal, so it's magnetic. Now you've got your wheels. This cylinder section in the middle is a two-part piece. So if you're going to take all of these wheels off, which is entirely possible, it is going to split in half, so just be careful. More in depth later. But what you can see is there's a little slider here, okay, moves up and down, right? Inside there you'll see, if I can get that to focus, when I slide that up, see the little pin for the slider right there? If I push it down, okay, so when that goes up and down, depending on where, these free float for the time being. So when you put your programmer in, these free float and align to the slots in the programmer. If I go back to the previous picture, so they'll just slide up and down until they get to the position they are. What you then have to do, let's just say that your slider goes up that far. You've then got to turn your thumb wheel to the right area before the key will actually go any further. You can see now that wheel slides straight past. Okay, so before it's on top. Now if I line that back up again, it will slide straight past. Okay, and that's how you disassemble this section. Number all your wheels. This one's number 5. I previously numbered these because I was buggerizing around with it a while ago. Alright, so that's how you take your wheels off. When you go to put them back on, just find where they slide on, like that. Okay, now when you go to put this back together, keep all your thumb wheels, the notches on the thumb wheels at the front. As I said, we're going to go more in depth how to decode this and make a key for it in another video, because this one's already getting pretty long. Flip it straight over. Okay, this little section here, see how you've got little notches sticking off? This little one here, I'll put that down for 1 second, goes down into here, this slot here. The other one sits over the top. As I said before, and in all my videos, if none of this makes sense, please leave a comment in the video, in the comments down below, and I'll try and clear it up for you. So you've got to get your spring back. Alright, now the easiest way to do it, let me zoom in, see if I can get this working a bit better, is you want to push the spring against the side. Again, remember, notch facing down towards the face of the lock, all of your little thumb wheels facing down towards the opening. Push that in there against the side, the spring, then push the other side down against there, hold your wheels together, and slowly, you may have to use a helper to push this spring down as you go. Gently push it all the way down until it's mostly in, and then push it with your thumb. Okay, so now it's properly seated where it should be. Flip it over, keep your fingers on the back just so it doesn't fall out, and you'll see that your thumb wheels are all in line. Okay, putting it back together again, don't forget this little bugger goes over the left hand side there. It's a cylinder retainer to stop it popping out. Right, then you can grab your roll of film. Let me zoom out. You can grab your roll of film. Remember which way it goes. The spring goes to the rear of the cover. Then that just slots in over those fittings. Okay. Now you can leave this drawer undone for now. It's not important at the moment. So that sits nice in there. Then you're gonna want to set your safe wheel to lock. So let me pull that out for a sec. Set your safe wheel to lock so none of the notches line up. Throw this in. It's probably a better idea to throw that in. Push the shackle down so it locks into place like that. Alright. This is where you need like 3 hands. Okay. Grab your film. Stick it where it's supposed to be. Alright. And when you're putting the cover back on, you've got to try and locate this pin on the back of your shackle latch, I suppose you'd call that thing. So you've got to locate that pin with that hole. And I guess the only real easy way to do that is sort of angle it like this. Let me show you that. So I'm angling it, I'm not having it face down, I'm angling it slightly so gravity kind of pulls that pin down a bit. Grab your case and you can see it's got some slots. You've just got to line those up with the respective areas that they sit in. Okay, and you should be able to give that a wiggle. No. Safe wheel. Alright, let's try something else then. Let's line up all the notches. Because we've already decoded this, line up all your notches. If I can get that last one to cooperate. Line up all your notches. Put your little bar back in there with the shackle open. Might be easier because then it sits a bit better and more free. Put your film back on top. And then slot this straight back over. It will take you a little while to eventually get used to trying to line up that little pin, but if you hold it like this, you can see that it goes into the slot that it's supposed to go into. If you can see in there, there's our pin, and there's the slot it goes into. Push it down, and that's your safe, your key box back together. You've got to hold it together until you at least get in one of the screws. And I try to put one of the short ones in first because that's up the end. Ooh, throw stuff away. That's up the end where the shackle lock is. Okay, so now I've got one screw in, I can let it go, put it face down. As I said, I will get more in depth with making a key later. This is more just giving you a little bit of confidence so you can pull the back apart and have a bit of an explore. Okay, now this video is getting quite long at the moment, so I want to try and speed this up a touch. I know everyone's got busy lives and don't want to watch another 25-minute video from me. The next one, I will try to do a lot more pausing when I go to do things and show you how to make the key. Or maybe I'll edit it or something. I don't like editing though. Okay, so currently we know that our shackle is open at the back, the lock. Slide that back in, reset the dial. Beautiful, it's locked. Now with our combination we previously got, we go clockwise, we'll push your shackle down. So see how there's slop in the shackle? Push your shackle down, go to 6, go anti-clockwise past the number that you just put in, and stop on the next number, which is 12. Clockwise back to the number that's last, which is the 10, and it's made a liar of me. So let me reset that again. 6, 12, 10, done. I must have just not reset it properly. And when you're done with this, if you really want to lock it up, just push it shut and it goes in there. Okay, so that's the start of this week's feature lock. I hope you learnt something, or at least have a reference point if you pull it apart and not sure how to put it back together. And in one of the next videos I do as a feature lock, I'll try to make a key for this. The tolerances are quite tight, but anyway, we'll see what we can do. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any comments or any suggestions, please put them down below. If you haven't subscribed already, do that, and you'll get the next video when I make it. So thank you, guys. Have a good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. See you later.